Hello and welcome back to another game review, from the JDJ Densa channel, only I've taken over the video so you'll be happy to look at me instead. So let's begin with an Amiga game well known to many. It's Zool 2, released in 1993 on the Amiga, and later on the Atari Jaguar and MS-DOS, with an emphasis on fast-paced action and smooth scrolling. It showed off the features of the new 32-bit platforms of the time. As this review is about the Amiga versions, I shall go into detail about those machines and the variants of the game that ran on them. Zool 2 is a side-scrolling platform video game originally developed by the Warp Factory and published by Gremlin Graphics for the Amiga in November 1993. It is the sequel to the original Zool, which was released earlier in 1992 on various platforms. When it was originally released for the Amiga, Zool 2 received positive reception from critics who praised the graphics, sound and gameplay. Originally released for the Amiga computers, Zool 2 was later ported to the Amiga CD32, MS-DOS, and Atari Jaguar platforms. The backstory is when the forces of Kroll, the first game's original evil, is again causing much misery upon the nth dimension with the help from his henchman Mental Block, the intergalactic gremlin ninja Zool, alongside his female companion Zeus and their two-headed dog Zoon, are entrusted with the task of stopping Mental Block. When it was originally released for the Amiga, Zool 2 received positive reception from critics who praised the graphics, sound and gameplay. Originally released for the Amiga computers, Zool 2 was later ported to the Amiga CD32, MS-DOS, and Atari Jaguar platforms. Zool 2 takes place several months after the events occurred in Zool. Kroll, the main antagonist of the original game, has sent his forces and Mental Block, his shape-shifting henchman, to invade the nth dimension and seize power in order to stifle the imagination of the world, causing rampant boredom in the process. Zool, the main protagonist of the first game, alongside his companion Zeus and their two-headed mascot Zoon, are entrusted with the mission of restoring order to the dimension and defeat Mental Block. The first level is straightforward: get all the pickups to get to 100% and find the bouncing ball at the end to progress. There's hidden chambers with the sponsor's product known as Chupa Chups, a boiled lolly that was the game's sponsor, to collect with power-ups. After traveling through the game's many worlds, they reach the main area where Mental Block awaits and they defeat him, saving the dimension, with a hint at a possible further sequel. The game features 6 worlds, with 3 sections within each world. The first is a bird-themed level called Swan Lake, the second is an electricity-themed world with light bulbs, vacuum tubes and light beams. The third is Tutankhamun, an Egyptian level full of sphinx spikes and sarcophagi. Fourth is Snaking Pass, full of snakes, fangs poison in the snake riding section. Fifth is Mount Ices, a throwback to the first game, a chilly level full of ice lollies, sweets and ice cream. And then Mental Blockage, the final world where mental block resides, featuring cerebral themes, such as books and phrenology heads. Along with health and shooting power-ups, they're the floating bombs that you can collect and use with a maximum of 3 at a time, which clear the screen of all enemies. The enemies often spawn at random or fly in from either side of the screen. Some shoot things at the player, such as the ostrich-like bird head shooting seeds, or a smashed vacuum tube shooting electrons, snakes spitting poison, or the mini sphinxes shooting projectiles. Also spiked walls, electrified bare wiring, boiling lava, hungry chicks, greasy walls, all waiting to catch you out. But there's things to aid the player too, such as fried eggs that when jumped on help you get up to a higher platform, or diagonally orientated sprung platforms. At the end of each world you have to fight Mental Block, an evil enemy that is always trying to stop you from winning. The first time you meet him he just jumps around, the second time he's a light bulb. As the game goes on it just gets harder to beat him. There is also a bonus section if in each section a Zool bonus is picked up. These are hidden. At the end of a world you can play a breakout style game, which is very hard, but if you keep hitting the blocks extra lives and points can be obtained, which is a nice touch, but it can be a bit heavy going if you're just recovering from a long and arduous level that you struggled to progress from. Overall the game is fairly well balanced and it can get rather tough towards the later levels, but you can skip levels and become immortal with the aid of the inbuilt game cheat system if you really can't face the ever-relentless enemies. The visuals are well designed and well implemented, the themes of each world are distinctive. The music is, in my personal opinion, absolutely fab, from the rave-like samples of the Swan Lake, to the trance techno of the Mulberry Hill, the bombastic Tutankhamun music. It's an element that complements the visuals of the game. One point I'd like to make is that on the Amiga version the music and game sounds are separate. This could be a design decision or a hardware limitation. The Atari Jaguar version has both game sounds and music mixed together. I have one gripe though. The AGA Amiga version of the music on Level 4 Snaking Pass is the same as Level 2's Mulberry Hill, but on the Amiga 500 and 600 and Jaguar versions it's a totally different musical tune, and the Mental Blockage music on both Amiga versions but not the CD32 is that the Mulberry Hill music is again reused. Also I found out recently that the Amiga CD32 version of the game had totally different music on all the levels that the Amiga versions and the PC and Jaguar versions have, which surprised me. Let's take a listen. I did think they were a tad generic and did not leave me with the same feeling of awe as the standard 8-bit audio of the main game's music. Comparisons have been made to Sonic the Hedgehog. This is a valid observation, but apart from some elements being borrowed, like the Bulbury Hill glass tube sections, where Zool and Zeus turn into a ball and zip across the screen, I do think Zool 2 does stand up on its own as a varied and largely original side-scrolling platform that may borrow and even pay homage to Sonic, but I do think it's original enough and unique in its concepts and level design not to be considered just a clone of Sonic like I mentioned earlier. Also, there's easy ways to cheat, typing in codes at the title screen to stop the clock, skip levels and have reusable bombs makes for an interesting and more playable game that allows easy access to the later levels that can be annoying to have to replay just to see the back end of the game. Back to the variants of the game on the Amiga hardware, there was a 16-bit version using the enhanced chipset, using 4096 colors with 64 on screen, and requiring 1 MB to run. The 32-bit version was released on the Amiga 1200 and 4000, needing 2 MB. Both had the AGA, or Advanced Graphics Array, known as the AA chipset in the US. This had 16.8 million colors and 256,000 on screen, with the then Alice and Lisa chipset allowing a 4 times bandwidth memory speed increase over the older Agnes and Paula chipset of the 16-bit machines. The most notable difference between the 16-bit and 32-bit version of the backgrounds that move in relation to the foreground, this is missing on the Amiga 500 and 600 versions, due to either hardware limitations or memory restrictions. Also the foreground graphics are slightly duller and has some dithered textures. I suspect the developers decided to release the 16-bit Amiga versions alongside the AGA 32-bit release, as at the time there were more 16-bit users. The newer 1200 and 4000 machines would spin on the ground and the bulk of the user base was still on the older generation 16-bit machines. Given the limitations on those older 16-bit machines, the game really is quite playable if you can live without the background and put up with a slightly less singy color palette and a little slowdown. To sum up, Zool 2 is one of those games that is actually better than its predecessor: better music, more involving and challenging levels, more insidious traps and clever ideas, like the snake you have to jump on to progress to an unreachable section, the light beams that can be jumped on to reach up to a higher section, or the invisible blocks that can only be jumped on once you shoot them. Also, there's some nice touches in the game when the cute but annoying chicks run about with a shell on their heads. When shot they chase you, Zool when hit he makes a quack sound, and the ninja cry of "REEEEE," the sound they both make when somersaulting into a wall to get to an unreachable platform. It's all very well observed. If you want a well-made and funny, cute and challenging side-scroller, look no further than Zool 2, a classic on any platform and well worth playing if you've never played it before. But be aware it can be almost too hard and a little unfair at times, especially Mount Isis in the mental blockage levels, but if you're struggling then use the cheats. So that's the end of my Zool 2 review. I'd better go now. Someone's doing crypto plotting on my hard drive and it's really getting on my nerves. Okay, see you soon, and don't rage quit. Keep gaming until next time, goodbye.